Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Today, we're going to be talking about the NAACP and their response to strike that. We're going to be talking about BLM and their response, no, strike that. The news media, no, we're just going to be talking about Joe Biden's racist comments at the town hall yesterday in Wisconsin. Now, before we get to that, if this is the first time that you've heard the program, we thank you and welcome you here. We do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you, talking to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. As long as the internet overlords allow, we speak directly with you, taking your texts, your calls, your comments about the issues that affect us all everywhere in the world. So we invite you to join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time from anywhere in the world to talk about what matters for you, because we believe in the First Amendment. But let's talk about the thing that no one is talking about at this moment. Let's get into the details about what Joe Biden did and didn't say, and whether or not it's racist. And how racist was it, if it was? And I'm particularly incensed about this. This is something that is a button for me, and it's annoying. Not because of the racial issue, it's because of the lack of commentary that we're seeing, the lack of acknowledgement that this even exists. We are watching the far left, the news media, bend over backwards to try and silence and eliminate any commentary about what Joe Biden said last night. And I think that's both unfair, not to Joe Biden, to the American people, to anyone who wants to understand what is he talking about when he says unity, anyone who's trying to get an understanding of what's going on in this nation. So let's get into this a little bit. The exact quote, and you can go, if you want to read it, you can go to the White House, and the links to everything we're going to be speaking about will be in the YouTube description after we're done. But you can see here that this is the exact quote that I'm looking at. This is in part of the conversations, the earlier part of the evening. And the president is responding to an audience member, a Dr. Desi Levy. And Dr. Levy is talking about the COVID vaccine and getting it out to blacks and Hispanics who are being underrepresented. And President Biden addresses a couple of reasons why blacks and Hispanics are less represented in the COVID vaccine numbers. And in doing that, he makes a specific statement, and we're going to play what he said. This is coming from Steve Chung, who is a blue check on Twitter. He's the former real Donald Trump campaign and White House special assistant to the President of the United States. He is a authorized, a verified person on Twitter, where he mentions, well, I'll get to his comment in 1 second. I want you to hear what Joe Biden had to say. Matter of fact, I'm going to make this big so you can see it. Here we
go. The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination at the Walgreens or at the particular store. The other part.
So I wanted to make sure that I put this in 100% context. I am not taking this out of context. I am not changing his words. I am not clipping what Joe Biden said. And again, to show you from the White House, this was a conversation about the underrepresentation of Hispanics and blacks in taking the COVID-19 vaccine. But the thing that got me is when he said there, and again, I'll show you the White House page, and he says there, not everybody in the community in the Hispanic and African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant or in inner cities, know how to get online and determine how to get in line for the COVID vaccination. Let's be very specific here. Joe Biden just said that minorities, individuals who are Black, Hispanic, do not know how to get online. They do not know how to use the internet. That is insanely insulting. And it's not the first time we've heard this. Now, Stephen Chung happened to mention that, quote, minorities don't know how to get online. That's why I played it in full. That's him paraphrasing. We just heard what Joe Biden said. He's not wrong. Joe Biden said that minorities, Blacks, Hispanics, they don't know how to use the internet. They don't know how to get online. Steve Chung says Joe Biden is perpetuating a racist trope that minorities don't know how to use the internet. It is insulting. It is insulting to say that Blacks and Hispanics don't know how to turn on a computer and how to access the internet. Now, we're going to go through this a couple of different ways, but I'm not surprised that Joe Biden said that, because Joe Biden is also the same man just 6 months or 7 months ago who said this.
We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. Wealthy kids, Black kids, Asian kids.
Did you hear him say that? That's right. Let's see.
Just as talented as white kids.
Say it again. Say it again, Joe.
Just as bright and just as talented.
Say it again, Joe. Say it.
You cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Did you see him stop there?
What?
Full stop. Poor kids are just as... I got to hear him say it again.
Do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Just as bright, just as talented as white kids. Full stop. Oops, I said something wrong. Let me fill in. And he stumbles through his words to try and make it sound more inclusive for everyone. But maybe you say, well, Mike, that's not really it. He took a dramatic pause, which he didn't. No, he didn't take a dramatic pause. He was being racist. But let's go a little bit further. How about when he had this wonderful conversation? Do you remember this in May of 2020?
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't Black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to.
Did you see? Look at his happy face. Look at that happy face on Biden. He's all happy because he just told Black people, he defined what is Black. How insulting is that? If you happen to be a woman, imagine someone telling you, you're not a woman unless you do X. You're not white unless you do X. You're not gay. You're not trans. You're not whatever it is that you are. It doesn't exist unless you have the approval of Joe Biden, because Joe Biden is defining who you are. And you can't be whatever it is you are unless Joe Biden approves of it. Well, that's the same kind of racist type of statement that comes from the mouth of someone who says, well, Black people, you don't know how to use the internet. Hispanic people, you don't know how to use the internet. And we see this with Joe Biden often, where he stops himself. He realizes, oops, I just said something that's honest. That's the way he feels. And he said it, and then he goes, oh, wait, let me correct that. Let me fix that. I mean, someone who's been in politics for 47 years, you would think he wouldn't say it in the first place, but he can't help himself. He tells what he thinks, what he is feeling. And then he corrects it as best as he can, unless he seems to be amused with himself for having told people that they have to live to his approval. Now you're going to say to me, Mike, well, that's, he's not being racist. He's being accurate. It's true. It's honestly true. I mean, some of the comments here, and I find this interesting because when you look through the comments, you're not going to see any blue checks here. You're not going to see anyone from the news media. You're not going to hear anyone from Hollywood. You're not going to hear from anybody from the far left, not of anyone of note. Real people are talking, but no one else. And the excuse that comes out is, well, he's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. There is a huge problem with elderly people in the urban cities that don't know how to get, quote, online. He's addressing the problem instead of lying. How refreshing. How refreshing. He didn't say old people. He didn't say the elderly. He didn't say old white people, old white women, old black women. He didn't say anybody's race or gender. He didn't put in their age. Well, I should say, he did say their race, not their gender, not their age. Because he made it very clear. He was talking to blacks and Hispanics. And he didn't say older blacks and Hispanics. He said black and Hispanic. This is you. You don't know. That's every age. This is people who are filling in the story in their own head. They heard him talking about elderly people. That's not what Joe Biden said. Another one, Instigator here, says, dude, he's talking about access for older people. I've been in the community signing up elderly people. They don't know how to make appointments on these portals. In some places, yes, that may be true. But again, he didn't say elderly people. He didn't say the elderly in the community. He said the community. He said black people, Hispanic people. Don't self-correct. You may want to correct him. He tried to self-correct himself. But he said what he said. And what he said is insulting on many different levels. I mean, and it's insulting for a lot of reasons. I mean, laptop ownership in the United States is a tough thing to figure out. If you go to Statistica, you'll see that their current update as of April 2020 is saying that there's 74% of adults that own computers, desktop laptops in their homes in America. We go to the fact tank. This is from Pew Research Center in April of 2015. Black and Hispanics aren't using their computers the same way that white people use their computers. Quote, mobile education is a bigger part of the smartphone experience for Hispanics. 45% of Hispanic smartphone owners have used their mobile device to take online class or look up educational content in the last year. That share is 32% for blacks and only 26% for whites. Black people are using their cell phones to get to the internet, not a desktop per se. But they're using the internet. They're going to the internet sites. They do it for jobs. They do it for healthcare, for banking, for real estate, for government services, educational content. You can see the results of the poll of the Pew Research right here. And blacks are comparable, if not in excess of reaching out and being online than whites are when it comes to being with a cell phone. And in August of 2019, it's admitted that smartphones are helping blacks and Hispanics with their access. That's in 2019. And at that time, using a desktop specifically, we see that 82% of whites, 58% of blacks, and 57% of Hispanics use a desktop in their home to access the internet. Not that they don't have access, because just like whites have 82% of their smartphones 80% of blacks with smartphones and 79% of blacks with smartphones to access the internet. And there's similar numbers with tablets or having all of the above. So the numbers change depending on who you're looking at. It could be as low as 74%, it could be 82%. In fact, if you go to the National Center for Education statistics, they show that in America in 2018, 91.8% of the United States had a home with a computer in it. And some 85.4% of American homes had internet access. So maybe the question should be, does every single adult, every black and Hispanic adult in America have a computer? No. But it doesn't mean it's not in the household, because 91% of the households in America aren't white. So someone's numbers are off. It could be the National Center for Education statistics. It could be Pew Research. It could be Statistica. But it doesn't change the fact, no matter what, it is an obvious and true fact to say that any ethnic group, if he had said Asians don't know how to use the internet, how to get online, we'd say that's insulting. If he said that those who are Jewish can't get online because they don't know how to use the internet. If he said gays didn't know how to use the internet and how to get online. If Joe Biden had said transgender people don't know how to use the internet, they don't know how to go online, is the first thought that you are thinking, hey, he's talking about old people? Or is the first thing you're saying, that's insulting? Because it's insulting. If we say whites don't know how to use the internet, or whites don't know how to get online to deal with COVID, that's not saying elderly people, that's saying all of that group of people. And that is, in that statement, insulting, incorrect, and offensive. And that's funny coming from me. I'm a Republican. I believe in free speech. I'm a conservative. I believe in the First Amendment. And here I am speaking about this because the left, who seem preoccupied with PC language and microaggressions and having offensive language being used, language not offensive because of vulgarity, but because of the content, because of the words and what they mean, especially in racial politics and race interactions. They are obsessed with this. And they had nothing to say about this. And I mean, they had nothing to say about this. You know, before I came to do this, I went and looked at the Google Trends. See, over the last 24 hours, what search term? You can put in Joe Biden and I'll show you. But if you look Joe Biden racist over the last 24 hours, that term, well, what time is this? 1:40. He was speaking last night. Where do we see it? Do you see any comments? There's nothing. You see breakout terms like CNN, internet, race, minority groups, but you can search through this yourself. But no one's talking about, while this term is going around in Twitter, and that's why we saw Joe Biden racist statements were an increase of 160%. Joe Biden racist comment, 140% increase. That's Twitter, that's Google searchers. People trying to figure out, did he do it again? Did he do it again? Not that he did this the first time, but just like he did in August of 2019, just like he did in May of 2020. Is he out there once again making his racist comments? And there are many, many more, and they go back 40 years. This is not new. Joe Biden has been doing this a long time. So if you're telling me and you're trying to correct his statement to say, oh, no, he's talking about elderly people. That's in your head. You're saying that. Joe Biden, who's been in politics for 47 years, he knows what he's saying. He said it. He tried to correct it because he knew what he said was racist. You go and search on Twitter. And you're not going to see anything about this. You see Newsweek and the rest of the news media. What are they talking about? They're talking about canceling student debt. They're talking about Joe Biden finally decided to give a call to Netanyahu out of Israel, their prime minister, and finally talked to our only ally in the Middle East. He's talked to everybody else. He finally got in touch with, he talked to the Iranians before he talked to the Israelis. The Iranians are our enemies. They want to see every American dead, regardless of their political politics. He finally got in touch with Israel. We see over and over again, look at all the blue checks, and you will see that they are talking about everything and anything that Joe Biden said except his racist comments. Not once. You're not going to see anyone saying, hey, he made this statement. It was absolutely racist. You see him talking about forgiving student debt and racial justice. No comment about, well, that racial justice, I think it may be interrupted by his racist comments. But you can look through for yourself. You're not going to find a blue check anywhere that's talking about this. We went to look at the fact check, factcheck.org. They were fact checking Biden's town hall, February 17, 2021. And not one comment on their list of things that they wanted to fact check had to do with Joe Biden making a racist comment and saying that blacks do, in fact, know how to go online. They do, in fact, know how to use the internet. Hispanics know how to use the internet. They know how to get online. And is there some portion of elderly people in the United States? Yes, there is a portion of them that do not know how to use the internet properly. I'd say those who are about 70 or older. Yeah, they have trouble with it. That's true for white, black, Hispanic, Asian. I don't care what your religion, your race, your gender, your sexual preference. Excuse me, not your race, but again, any of those categories. If you're 70 and older, yeah, you're having problems with the internet. Anyone. But not when you're younger than that. And that's who Biden was talking about, as he always likes to do. I looked up Joe Biden racist. And just to see what is the closest thing we can find. The Denver 7 has one article on it. And then it goes into a fact check about a Harris debate, the Vice President, Kamala Harris, debating with Joe Biden about his racist history, his defense of racism in the United States, going back to segregation that Joe Biden supported. Again, when I say that Joe Biden has been making racist comments, this isn't new. We're talking about something that happened over 4 decades ago. And he consistently continues to make these statements. He continues to make these racially charged, insensitive, insulting, racist comments on a regular basis, even as he's running for president. But if you look through, other than these two topics, out of well over 122 million search results, you're not seeing people talking about what Biden said on February 17th of 2021. You're just really not seeing it. People are talking about everything except that racist comment he made. I look for the NAACP. They're willing to try and sue President Trump and Rudy Giuliani for an association that doesn't exist. They're trying to say that everyone that was at the January 6th riots in D.C., well, there were the Ku Klux Klan. They were white supremacists, even though a lot of people that were there were people of color. And some of those people of color were from Antifa. But even so, this group that is so sensitive that just having the event happen in D.C., the D.C. riots, so sensitive that they're willing to sue him on something that doesn't exist. What did they have to say to Joe Biden, racist town hall? Search it yourself. There are 334,000 results. And in 334,000 results, you can search page after page after page. This is page 5 of the listings that I've looked for. And the only thing that seems to be appropriate, which is within February 18th, within the last 18 to 24 hours, is the Independent from out of the UK. You have to go outside of the United States. Biden calls white supremacists demented. And even trying to figure that out, that's not it. Biden calls white supremacists demented. Well, okay, except his statement was a racist statement, something I would expect from a supremacist. I'll play it again, just to make sure we know.
The other portion is a lot of people don't know how to register. Not everybody in the community, in the Hispanic and the African American community, particularly in rural areas that are distant and or inner city districts, know how to get online to determine how to get in line for that COVID vaccination.
Wow. Yeah. It still sounds just as racist as it ever was before. And we have heard far less dangerous things, far less racially tense things from many, many presidents, from many, many people. And it has been a Twitter storm. It has been covered by everyone in news media. You know, President Trump was asked, what was it, 3-4 times by Jake Tapper to denounce white supremacy, and he did each time. And it's been recorded. Jake Tapper has said it himself in his tweets, and yet that was still a tweet storm each and every time he got asked the question. But yet they won't cover this with Joe Biden. They won't even address what he has said. The best we can get is that he was talking about white supremacists, even though he was making racially insensitive, at the very least, racially insensitive comments. Tone deaf. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Is it me? Am I misunderstanding it? Again, I'm not saying that he couldn't say it. I'm not saying that he should be denied his First Amendment right to speak whatever he thinks. That's different. He can say it. What I'm saying is, why aren't we holding him accountable to the same standard that I hear from BLM and Antifa when they take me on? When they call me soulless because I don't agree with their point of view? Why is it that when I get death threats and threats of attack, and I've been called every racial slur that you can think of, almost entirely from the far left, why don't they hold Joe Biden to that same standard? Why is it that they are forgiving Joe Biden as he runs around and tells blacks and Hispanics, oh, this is how you can qualify to be your birthright? Why is it they give him a pass when he says things like that? He insinuates that everyone who isn't white is poor. These are his words. And yet they want to treat me on a different standard. They want to treat you on a different standard because you can't say that. I can't say that. I can't even say that I am a Republican and conservative without being attacked for that. And that has nothing to do with my race. That has nothing to do with my ethnicity. It has nothing to do with anything about me other than that's what I believe. That's the person I am. And I am attacked for that. And Joe Biden is given a pass as he goes over and over and over again, making racist comment after racist comment after supporting racist ideas with known and avowed racist individuals. The news media this is an example of the news media using the greatest amount of bias they possibly can. They have ignored, they have effectively eliminated a critical issue, an issue that they themselves have made a prominent and big issue. Democrats, Maxine Waters, all the Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, they're all over the racial aspects of everything in America. And they have nothing to say about what Joe Biden said because he's a Democrat. And that's the thing. Hollywood, it's about being a Democrat. It's about being part of the left, the far left, the extreme. So yeah, you should be upset that Joe Biden said this, that he made this comment. Not that he could make this comment, because that's his First Amendment right. You should be upset that he said it and that he has a history of saying these things. He has a history of having these kinds of remarks, these thoughts that he is putting out in policy as well as in statements. And you should be holding him to the same standard that everyone else is supposed to be held to. And if we aren't doing that, then how serious is this? What else is going on? That's what I'd like to see in the comments to this. I'd like to hear what you think. If this isn't a big deal, then what part of the whole racial justice, social justice, gender identity, politics, what part of it is actually important and why? Now, we hope that you found at least some part of this interesting and informative. If you have, please do give us a like and share. And most of all, please do subscribe so that more people can join us in this expression of free speech and our First Amendment rights from all across the world to give their input as well. And most of all, please join us on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to give us what you think about everything going on. We look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon. Thank you.